going to get started with some questions around fear and moving forward. I heard the word hopelessness and overwhelm. What else are you guys thinking about? If I were to ask you, even given the state of everything, the state of California, lockdowns again potentially, and we should not call it a lockdown, we should call it isolation. A lockdown sounds militaristic and people are scared enough. So it's an isolation. We're going back into isolation potentially. We know we have the Delta variant and people are concerned about that. Lots of things going on. Fires in California, floods in other places. Some days when I look at the news, it looks like, gosh, what isn't on fire is flooded. So, and there are countries around the world that have never had this before. And now, like Germany, for example, looking in Prague, that was really sad. Having been to Prague many times and seeing how beautiful everything is, and then cars and houses are washing away. So, when you think about, yeah.
David, with all of that you're discussing and you're laying out, this is the current state, this is our possible future state. How do people stay hopeful? How do we manage our thoughts around this without feeling just despair?
Ooh, despair. Oh my God. I guess the first thing I want to just say is that I'm kind of empowered to talk about these things, because of my academic background and what licensure that I have, and also just being a human being in the world over the last 2 years. So I want to tell people, if anyone hearing this, that if you're experiencing a significant depression, anxiety that is crippling you, if you have thoughts of harming yourself, please know we love you and we want you to live. And we need for you, and we can put the number for suicide prevention across the bottom of the screen if we could. So the fear, let's break it down first, because when we say the last 18 months, it jumbles everything together, doesn't it? And it just comes like a hodgepodge of everything. So what changes have you guys, just the three of you, experienced in your own lives over the last 18 months?
Oh man, definitely anxiety, right?
Okay.
A lot of high stress situations, having to juggle kids, working from home. It seems to be too, even the work from home increased just because, even on the other side and the employer side, they're freaking out too. Like, okay, are they going to be able to get work done? Because now they got to work from home. And
right.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of high stress situations and anxiety.
I'd say my work changed.
Mm-hmm.
We went from fully in person to now we work from home. My weight changed because I'm now very close to a refrigerator.
We're all doing the best we can. I think, thank you, Megan, because I have to tell you, my weight was the biggest thing. That was the biggest issue for me. Rose, what about you? What was the biggest thing for you?
So I would say that, being a mother of five,
5 kids,
that was extremely difficult. We have a special needs child. For the first time ever in my life, I was put on antidepressants at the beginning of this year. It's just been extremely stressful. And just like you, Megan, I've put on a good chunk, because, fridge is right there. There's no one here to see it, and the kids
you're a good cook too. You're a great cook on top of that, right? So, when we're talking about moving forward, what you heard me through asking you the questions is it's important to kind of get a picture of where you were, and where you are right now, because you can't, change something, as Dr. Phil would say, that you're not acknowledging. We have to acknowledge where we are right now. And what you guys have said is where we are is we're several pounds heavier, which also means that we've probably developed some habits that didn't exist in our lives prior to this 18-month period of time. The isolation is challenging for all of us. Work is challenging because Work was one thing when we could turn it all off by leaving the office, and then we'd have a ride home. We could stop at a shop or a coffee place and kind of decompress and then go home to part two of our day. And we don't have that anymore. Rose, I would imagine that your day is part on the computer and then getting up and taking something out for lunch, then getting back on to work and then logging off and singing about the kids, and Kyle's running around. So you have staggered responsibilities, which means it's difficult for you to get that groove that we were accustomed to having at work. So what's underneath all of this? Is it anger? We see lots of people very angry today about one thing or the other. What are people angry at? Is it really anger or is it fear? I suggest that it's fear, because we don't know. Tomorrow's kind of a question mark in a way. We know it'll come. The world's not ending. But honest to goodness, organizations have changed. Some organizations are mandating that you get a vaccine to come back to the office or don't come back. Some organizations, like government organizations right now, it seems the way that they're going is if you don't want to take the vaccine, then distancing is going to become a mandate, and then weekly testing, I think it is. So who wants to subject themselves to a COVID test every week? So there's all of that stuff happening. But fear is false evidence appearing real. You know, just because you have the feeling doesn't mean that it's actually a real thing. And if you have the feeling of fear, and then you look at Facebook and TikTok and the news and headlines, that will validate those fears, and that will become your reality. I have to just say it that plainly. I don't want that to be my reality. I like comfort, beauty, happiness. I like to laugh. I love a good meal. That's what I want more of. So when it comes to fears and COVID and changes and uncertainty, what am I afraid of specifically? Name it. So the example that I'm using, because it's so current, is leaving the house to take a plane to go somewhere and stay in a hotel. And I'll just be very frank with you. I was very anxiety ridden over that until finally I said, David, you've got to get a hold of yourself. Because here's the other thing. We got to talk to ourselves a little bit. You know, when those thoughts come in, I was thinking, oh, I'm so afraid of leaving. I just moved here and is my neighborhood safe? I'm like, well, David, if you're worried about safety, what are some things you can do? Do you need a safe? Yeah, get one. Do you need new locks? Yeah, get some. You know, what do you need to, what are the tasks that can mitigate and minimize those fears? Identify the fear, identify the actions to minimize them if you can, and then you just move forward. You know, getting to the airport, I think I mentioned, I love the essential oils. And I put some lavender, a couple of sprinkles of lavender inside my mask. And I think that McCarran Airport should send me a thank you card for that, because I was calm and behaved like a calm, rational person. You know, the plane ride, kept my mask on. I was doing a meditation that started with a body scan. And it's really so interesting. A body scan doesn't take any time at all. But when you are able to go from your feet to your calves, to your knees, to your thighs, to your back, to your neck, to your shoulders, arms, head, and you're able to say, I'm pain-free. My legs are working, and I'm grateful for that. When you go through that very basic exercise, it is amazing the relief that comes from that, because now you've sent a signal to your brain that says, I've got a body that can help carry me through these experiences, that won't fail me. So I found that to be very helpful. Fear is a cruel mistress. You know, she will have you, and I give her the pronoun she. I'm not sure why. It could be anything. I'm sure I'll get letters. But, you know, fear is so insidious because it can crop up at any moment. And the minute it's here, if you don't kind of address it, what we find is that other stuff kind of shows up to validate it. And then, okay, so that fear embedded, check. Next. And then you have another fear and more validation, check. And then so on and so on. So if I were to do this in a step action table, first understand that you're afraid. How do people know? How does it feel to be afraid? Do you guys have any feedback on how it feels to be afraid? Because I certainly do.
For me, it's a
Mhm.
feeling that all of a sudden my heart will race, or I can feel something internal, like something's not okay.
Yeah, almost like that stomach twisting and a little bit of anxiety. It's like kind of almost like a little bit of everything. It's like everything's going off, right?
What about you, Rose?
So I get migraines really bad.
Oh.
So it's like when I start getting scared of something, I think about it just way too much, and I'll start this whole process of trying to cope with it. But it's more of like it starts going to worst case scenarios and just keeps on going and going and going, and eventually it'll end up in a migraine, or just sometimes I just go to my husband and I'm just like, I just need a hug, so that's where I kind of go. I go to the worst case scenarios when I'm scared of something.
And lucky all of you, you're happily married with spouses and everything to turn to when things get dark. I'm so happy for you. And I'm not the slightest bit bitter that I'm here in a lovely home with lots of antiques, but no spouse. But enough about that. I wanted to ask you about how it felt, because for me, fear and anxiety take my body over in different ways. Anxiety affects my stomach. Anxiety does not affect my cardiovascular system. I guess it could if I let it go on for a long period of time, but normally I'll either take a nap or talk myself out of it. Fear is different, because when I let fear in, not only is my stomach bad, but my hands are clammy, like sweaty. But then the worst thing about the fear is my brain goes on a loop I can't get off of. So Rose, you were saying that thought, I just can't get away from it. And it's not a thought pattern that goes problem, analysis, resolution. It just says problem, 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 problem. And you know what? Not only is this going to happen, but what's going to happen next? And it builds on itself. How do you guys, have you ever had the experience of stopping that?
Yes. But it has to be very, very conscious.
In other words, it takes work, right?
It takes a lot of work to go, wait a second, is that really going to happen? And with enough years in age, I can go, you know what? I've gone here before to this worst case scenario. It didn't turn out to be worst case. So let's apply that to this next one. It's probably not going to be worst case. And I can kind of draw from my experience now to go, okay, I'm now fearing things that probably won't happen. So it's a very conscious thing to talk myself out of.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I would, it helps to talk to someone else. And it helps to kind of, go through it with someone else, because they're going to be rational and they're going to be calm and they're going to see, what are you worried about? And they're going to be able to talk me through it. So, reaching out sometimes is the best way to overcome. So not all the time, but definitely reaching out, I feel definitely helps get rid of that fear, or at least.
Okay. So Kyle, I want to take that just one step further, because I absolutely agree that you need to talk to somebody, if for no other reason than to just get your sanity validated sometime. How important is it to pick the right person to talk to? And then what happens if you pick the wrong person?
Great question. So if you pick the wrong person, those fears can definitely not go away. They can definitely snowball. But that's the trick, right? Who do you know who you can talk to? Who's really your friend, or someone you can trust to confide in, things like that. Yeah, that's definitely important. And that's why there are therapists and psychiatrists and help groups and things like that, because maybe you can't trust someone, you don't think you can, so you have to find a professional. So there's definitely avenues to take to talk to someone if you don't feel like you have someone in your life that you can confide in. For me personally, I've, knock on wood, I haven't had to deal with that yet. But I'm not the same as everybody else. So you have to find what works for you. Definitely.
What do you think, Rose?
So I actually have 2 friends that I go to speak about things.
Okay.
I have the one friend that is that's going to give me, I know that she's going to give me the best advice. Okay. And then I have my other friend that I know that if I come to her with a problem and I just really need a vent, it would be like, let me get the shovel. Like, so I have the 2 different friends that I can go to help me, based on what I need. If I need to just vent, I'm going to go to this person. If I need good advice, I'm going to go to, this other person. And it's all just kind of from there, because, and I have had experiences in the past where I go to the wrong person, and yeah, things could turn out worse because some people don't have the best interest, and they may take your fears and use them against you. And one thing that I say in my affirmation is that I face my fears without revealing my weaknesses. And it's the same way when talking to somebody else is, I don't want to reveal too many weaknesses, because if I don't trust somebody, because I don't want them to ever come up and be used against me.
So the reason I sort of tease that out of everybody is that, we open this discussion talking about how do we move forward, given the condition of things right now, not only right now, but the condition of things that are likely to occur shortly. How do we navigate all of that? And we talked about the concept of fear being one of the biggest impediments that people are facing right now. Fear looks different with everybody. Some it may make them angry, some it may make them sad. Some people just withdraw. It looks different, just because somebody's smiling doesn't mean they're not depressed, right? So if it's false evidence appearing real, and I'm recommending that you examine those fears without judging them, just examine them objectively, resource them, question those fears, and what can I do about this? And then do that. The other part of that is, well, who do I talk to help me, maybe talk me down off the roof, as it were? And it's important to know that is an important thing to do, but it's also important to remember you're not the same person that you were. None of us are the same as we were a year and a half ago. I am not the same person I was before I moved here. I am uniquely different as a result of all the stuff that's happened. So those go-to people, because it's a habit, oh, well, I always call so-and-so, to make me feel better. And by the time you finish talking to so-and-so, you're like, can you pass me that razor blade, please? Because you just feel almost worse than maybe you did before. So I'm just suggesting that when you think of the who to call, who's in your corner, who's hopeful, who's got hopefulness in their life, who has resilience in their life. You shouldn't, I'm not going to say you shouldn't. I don't call people to sort of amplify my reserve of resilience. I don't call people that don't have any resilience. I'm not going to, if I'm running a little low on hope, I'm not going to call somebody who can find something wrong in a rainbow. And there's lots of people like that. The APA talks about, the American Psychological Association talks about how much easier it is to be actually a little negative than it is to be positive. And people have studied that for 1 million years. No one still has an answer, but negativity isn't going to help us with what we have on our plates today. So, the steps have to do with resilience, and what does resilience mean to people? I'm from Detroit. So let me tell you, resilience does not mean bouncing back, because bouncing back implies to me, I'm standing in a spot, something happened, knocked me down, and I got back up and I'm right back in the space I was in when somebody knocked me down the first time. How was that a good thing? So I like the idea of resilience as bouncing forward for me. Something challenging, some impediment occurs, some challenge. And I look at that and I say, how am I going to make something good happen out of all of this? Yesterday, when I was at that cell phone store that is not to be named until later, I just was having such a terrible time. And finally, I just looked at all of them. In my biggest voice, I said, you know what? This has been a terrible experience. And, I'm not, there's not really a customer oriented feeling here, but there's a lesson here. I don't know what it is, but that's how I view these challenges. So no matter if it was turbulence or, the cell phone or whatever it is, and you have two choices, right? I can say, oh my God, you're not going to believe how horrible this was. It was just terrible. You can do that. A little bit of that is kind of fun. You can be dramatic and use hyperbole, and who doesn't love that? But then you've got to be able to say, what have I learned from this? Because if I don't sort of reframe it, which is another element of moving forward, if you don't reframe it, what happens to people if we continue to look at things and say, oh, that's horrible. Oh, you're not going to believe how terrible that was, without the reframing. So what happens if we just continue to go along that trajectory with no reframing, do you think?
I think that they get into a habit. So now naturally everything is negative, and even the smallest things that should be a positive can just be negative. And that's going to impact your daily life, your every single relationship you have with someone, with anyone, work, home, children, now you're just what are they called? The negative Nancy,
I call them dismal Lizzies. and they're magnetic.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you become a dismal Lizzie, those are the people that are going to seek you out. Yeah. So the reframing, so we said resilience, and resilience is bouncing forward. Resilience is faith in yourself, that you've been through enough, that you've seen enough, that you've got the skills, you can communicate, you can interact and collaborate with people. And I got to tell you, those are the skills that'll carry us through the next 6 months or so. People say, oh, I'm going to stockpile this and do that. I'm like, okay, you are not going to be able to stockpile your way out of everything that is going on. You're going to have to learn how to collaborate with people. You're going to need to be able to read a room. You're going to need to be able to ask people how they are and then wait for an answer, and not just let it be a perfunctory, oh, how are you doing? Well, let me tell you all about me. That's not going to restore our hopefulness. It's not going to amplify resilience, and it certainly isn't going to minimize overwhelm or restore hope. So, oh, look, she's got a new picture up. My goodness, these people are creative. So, how do you reframe something? I guess would be the next question. So you don't have to disclose your own examples here unless you want to, but the example I gave about my airline travel a couple of weeks ago, did that sound like a good example of reframing?
Yeah, that was a great example. So you took it upon yourself to keep yourself calm, and you took steps to, you actually thought about other people. You were like, okay, well, I don't want to go crazy at the airport, so I'm going to do something to keep myself calm and relaxed and comfortable. And the next thing you know, you touch down and you're already where you want to be, and the day just started.
You take and I would say, going through this, it's not peaches and blueberries and rainbows and bubblegum and stickers, because, when you think about fear and then you identify it, birds don't start chirping and the sun comes out. You're still feeling all of this. You have to work through that. But the reframing is saying, I'm positive there's another way of looking at this. I'm positive that there's another way of looking at this. So instead of looking at the fear and just saying, oh, you remember the phrase that was quite popular? I haven't heard it recently, but there was a phrase people said, oh, you got to put on your big girl panties or your big boy panties or something like that. And I thought, well, that is really dismissive. Just put on your big boy panties. Well, how in the world, we've not been taught to do that. So sometimes you have to move forward even when your emotional voice is telling you something to the contrary. Hard work, but do we want to thrive over the next period of time, or do we want to just survive? Survival right now is about hanging on every second of the news and what's going to happen next, and then calling people up and talking about that and being worried, and then eating too much or drinking too much or whatever. And it keeps us in a cycle. Are we surviving? Yeah. Are you showing up for work? Yeah. But don't you want more for that, more for your life than that? And for those of you that have children, or even if you don't, if you're just an example to other people because you're a human in the world, is that the kind of example you want? That's not what I want. I want people to say, gosh, no matter what happens, that guy, he just keeps going. He's got a smile on his face. Stuff might be going wrong, but look, he's not giving up. I think that's very important. The reframing, I think, is probably the biggest tool at our disposal. When you look at a problem, in the professional realm, we would say, oh, it's continuous quality improvement. And we'd say, oh, well, what's the problem statement? Who's involved? What were the actions? How do we validate that it's actually a problem? And essentially, reframing is doing that in a personal way. We're doing that in a personal way. So when we think about that, I just want to mention, sometimes you can't reframe by yourself. Sometimes you need to dial a number with someone that has a license and maybe even a DEA number, I don't know, to write prescriptions. But I have a therapist and a coach that I use. I meet with them every Monday.
I think you bring up a great point, David, of, sometimes you need somebody who's equipped for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I've noticed too, where people are saying, this is not to talk ill of any of our friends. My
Sure.
friends are great friends, but are they as equipped right now as they were a year ago to hear my problems?
Yeah.
Or are they struggling as well, where they're coming from at it, where I'm now just adding on another stressor to them, and that's what they're responding to. So I think, as we're reaching out to people, we have to be very cognizant of where is this person at? And I'm not qualified to tell you. In the workplace, we're dealing with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're working with people and we're seeing people struggling, and we just have to be compassionate. But, it is a challenge to go, where is this person coming from right now?
Kyle mentioned earlier that, reaching out to a therapist, a counselor is important. And I just have to say, I don't see a way around that right now. I don't look at it as a permanent state of affairs, because I don't look at anything as being permanent anymore. I just look at, this is what we're doing today. And today, every week, I meet with a coach/therapist, because how am I going to be expected to be in front of a camera and talk to the numbers of people that we talk to, Kyle, and you know how many people that is, without checking myself? Right. So they used to call that mental hygiene, but I have dated myself by saying that. But, the next thing I'll be using phrases like the Baker Act. History is fun, apropos of nothing. But Megan, you began the conversation by some words I heard, and I wrote them down: hopelessness and overwhelm. Motivation, stress, fear, masks, isolation, mental health, and stress. Those were the buzzwords I heard from everybody at the top of our talk tonight. And I think that even though each one of those could be its own program, it could be its own conversation, I love the idea. In AA, they use a phrase. I use the acronym false evidence appearing real. In Alcoholics Anonymous, fear is referred to in another way. The F is for a 4-letter expletive. The E is for everything and run. So expletive, everything, and run. Which I think is it's graphic, but it really does sort of identify and really capsulize what people do when they're in fear. They don't think, they react and run. And we know that we don't need to do that. So instead of running, we reframe. And if we are having trouble with reframing, then we reach out, hopefully, to someone that is good for us, whether it's a therapist, and it doesn't necessarily need to be. I would just ask you, before you dial the phone, just ask yourself again, who am I calling? And how is this likely to end? Do you know that just within the last 3 days, I've reached for the phone. I was going to call my sister. Anybody that knows me knows my sister and I, why was I thinking about calling her? I'm like, David, what do you think is going to happen on the other side of this? What's going to happen? Or you call certain friends that are very politically motivated. So no matter what you talk about, the responses are through a filter of politics and all. That doesn't really help me. So I'm just asking, before you reach out to talk to somebody, think that through. Don't make it worse for yourself. All this requires you to be thinking all the time, and it's hard.
Well, and speaking of that, we are right. It is hard. So if I don't want to turn to be overly drinking, I don't smoke. I got to get away from the refrigerator. I don't have really a vice. How do we get a break?
Good question, because I don't have any vices. I quit drinking 35 years ago with the help of Cedars-Sinai and Alcoholics Anonymous. I quit smoking, I don't know, about 20 or 30 years ago. And so I don't have any vices. Thank you. I don't take any pills or anything like that. I must say that this weight that you see on me is probably the vice that I had, because I'm a great cook, not as great as Rose, but I'm a great cook. And believe me, I cook for 4 or 6 and then I eat all of it, or at least I would. So those vices I no longer have. So what do I do instead? I read, I walk. I live in a wonderful town where I have like mountains and that, and I enjoy the mountains. I've lived by the ocean, I've lived by the mountains, and I enjoy both, but I'm really super enjoying the mountains right now. I like to get on a treadmill because I dislike that so much. I discover it's so difficult for me to think about anything else except how much I hate this. But then 30 minutes later, I'm sweating and feel better, and who cares, right? It achieved what it was supposed to. But no vices, what do you do? Even dating, going on meetup.com for people that didn't have like a social group, you could go on meetup.com and put your zip code in, type in some interest, boom, you got a social outlet. Well, not so much anymore. Even those are now virtual. So the answer is, who knows? All I'm saying is that we've got to keep hold of our minds. Our brains are amazing elements of our bodies, and we have more control over it than people realize. I would suggest that I have control over emotions, which is something I did not have before. I can choose to be angry. I can choose to be sad. I can choose all of that, but I have to commit to that. And here's the hard part for me. Every day when I get up, it requires, and I well up when I think about it, because literally every day you've got to wake up and you got to say, you know what, here we are again. Still isolated, working from home. Yeah. COVID's still out there. Delta, everything's going on. Delta, American Airlines, all the variants are out there. Spirit Airlines, it's out there. But I'm choosing today to be in good spirit. And I'm choosing to, whatever I do today is going to help people today. And it's not going to harm me today. And I'm not accustomed to having to get up and make a new commitment to myself every single day. We have taken so much on automatic pilot in our lives, it kind of feels like that now we can't really do that. And we're like, what? I've got to do this every day? Yeah, try skipping a day. Try skipping a day. I trust if you skip a day, you won't do it again. Some people call it setting an intention. So like Louise Hay and people of that ilk would refer to it as setting an intention. And I think we've talked about that in some programs we've done before, Kyle. where you say, what do I want to see happen today? And sometimes you can be very specific with it. That's just how your mind might work that day. Other days you may say, I have no idea. Don't know. I am so overwhelmed. So I just say, you know what? My intention today is that I'm going to get up and I'm going to prepare myself to be as productive as I can be. Shower, dress, do all that stuff, sit down at my desk, and I'm going to trust that my steps will be ordered when I sit down to do my work. So some days that's my process. And then other days I'm actually able to make a list of things, to do. And I'm sure we all do that. We make a list of what we want to accomplish in a day. Sometimes I can't do that. And I just have to say, you know what? I'm here. I'm prepared to be productive. So, okay. And you know what? It works out every single time. So how do you keep that going? Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I think we also have to sometimes go, it's okay not to be productive for a bit. It's okay to feel this. It's okay to be sad or angry or whatever it may be at that moment. And I think that is a challenge for people who overly productive for years up until this point.
Right. Those type A personalities.
I would like to actually touch on the morning, what you were talking about. So every morning I have a affirmation that I say, and I want to share it with you because I think that it could be helpful. I have had this affirmation for years upon years. And as I grow and as things change, it changes with me. Okay. And so every morning in the mirror, I tell myself that I'm positive, I'm confident and strong, that I face my fears without revealing my weaknesses, and I accept the consequences of my actions. I'm free to be who I want, and I'm free to be who I am, and I am positive, confident, and strong. And so that has just been with me all the time for years upon years. I left a very, very depressing situation, very traumatic situation about 9 years ago. About 9 years ago. And I have said it to myself every single day. And when I start feeling low or sad or that I'm not good enough, I'll tell myself that, I can accept the consequences of my actions. I am me. If I choose to step back and take a break for a second, I can, because I'm willing to accept those consequences of the dishes having to be done in the morning versus right now before I go to bed. I choose to be happy. I choose to say, I'm going to let this go, or I'm going to fight this battle. And so, if someone out there, just come up with something that that's just like your truth. And it really, really helps, because then you also have something to fall back on. Because if I'm in a really bad situation, I'll repeat to myself, I'm positive, confident, and strong before I say anything else that could get me in trouble. And so it really helps.
So a couple things, Megan, what you said reminded me of something that I was discussing with a clerical person, an ecumenical clerical person. And the concept was, what he told me was that, you just have to stop resisting. And, I had to sort of sit there for a second, because I thought, what exactly does that mean for me? And so when you see things the way they should be and not the way they are, that's an example of not resisting, right? When you get upset because people don't understand what you're saying, because they have their own things they're going through, and you choose to attack them, that's an example of not resisting. Instead of just saying, if they could do anything differently right now, I'm sure they would, right? Now you say, well, how does that work against you saying, David, that I choose to be happy over sadness? Well, two things can be true at the same time. I can just say, right now I'm feeling sad. I'm not going to resist it. And in the not resisting, it seems to me, my experience has been that it lasts shorter periods of time. The not resisting takes less time for me to get to the part where I can now make different choices. I don't know how you do this, without rituals, like Rose, you were saying, you have your affirmations that you do. I think rituals are very important. I have a ritual. I get up fairly early and I open all the windows and draperies in the house and let the sun in. And I just stand there looking around and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I live here. This is amazing, because happiness and verbalizing gratitude lifts your energy. So I've already been lifted before I've had my cup of coffee. And then I have my coffee, I go out by the pool and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it's 6:30 in the morning and I'm having coffee at my swimming pool. This is amazing. It doesn't have to be a swimming pool. At 6 o'clock in the morning, you could sit on the front steps, you'd still get the same feeling. Rituals are so important, especially when we're living, working, raising children, educating ourselves, and socializing all under one roof. We need boundaries and we need rituals. And so the rituals for me have really helped keep some sanity here. Because without that, you wake up in the morning and where's your thoughts are already scrambled before you get out of bed. It's very, very interesting. I wanted this talk to sort of explain and help people sort of feel like they weren't alone in the idea of the fact that they might be fearful right now or stressed or anxious. And a lot of parents, especially the parents that actually care about their children and are invested in their education, those poor folks, you guys, because all of you have children. I mean, 5 of them, can you imagine? And they're all young. And they're all young. And you two are still smiling. You're doing something right. Yeah. And I want people to see that. And I want people to know that there's not really a right or wrong way of going through this next period of time. I want people to know, all of us to know, and myself as a reminder, I'm not the same person. So if we've got negative baggage that we're carrying, whether it's relationships or mistakes or whatever it might be, it's important to be able to say, I'm not the same person as I was 18 months ago. And, that is so liberating to just say that out loud. Say it after me. I am not the same person I was 18. You guys aren't saying it.
You said after me.
I said it.
After.
You said
You were
after
doing
you.
it. You did it, Kyle. You get the prize. You get the
You
prize.
said it weird.
Okay, let's say it together for everybody.
I
I
am
I'm
not
not the same person
person I
It
was.
was
18 months
18
ago.
months ago.
I have to say that's releasing and liberating.
Mhm.
We have a chance to be different. The other thing, Megan, going back to your question at the beginning, how do we move forward through all of this? Well, I'll leave this as a bit of a teaser. We need to think about reinventing ourselves. What does that mean? I can't tell you what it means, but you're talking to somebody who's been a hospital administrator. I've sold loans on the stock market. I've been an undertaker. I have done so many things, because sometimes you just wake up and you say, I'm not that person, and that is not working for me anymore. And I'm not going to make it work. I'm not going to try to squeeze myself into that. Resilience, reframing, and reinvention, and questioning your fears and thoughts and not accepting them as fact. Put those in a little bag and shake it up. And what you'll find is, whether you're at home with 7 people or 4 people, or in my case, 1 person, no matter what our differences might be, you can find that we will all be on the same sheet music if we have that. And then that creates its own vacuum too. Because if I begin to reinvent myself, which we're doing here today, by the way, my reinvention brought in Megan, who is a brilliant woman, accomplished and well-traveled. And I'll just say she's very well organized, and I'll leave it at that. She is grounded and she has wonderful perspective. And Kyle, I have had the most amazing relationship with him over the last 18 months. And we have shared things, and with all the topics and things that we have worked together on, I know Kyle to be a great father. I know Kyle to be a great husband. I know Kyle to be a great provider, and I know Kyle to be a great friend. So have you participated in my reinvention? You have, because those values that you have, Kyle, inspired me during all the hundreds of webinars that we have done. And Rose, I don't know if I can say this without crying. You radiate love and openness and acceptance.
You're gonna make me cry.
And I can't tell you how rare that is. I mean, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. It's just there. It's just there. It's just always a hug, always a smile, and always a plate of food. I mean, even though we're just virtual right now, but that's the feeling I'm getting. So by surrounding myself with you folks who have these extraordinary qualities and values, I'm becoming something different. We can all do that. So anybody who's listening, find your own Megan, find your own Kyle, find your own Rose. And then you don't need to be like David, but use those resources that those people are bringing you to reinvent yourself to something better, so you can share with others the love and value that these three have brought for me. I'd like to take us through a little meditation. Would that be okay for today?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that okay? Okay, I would just ask everybody to close their eyes and take maybe 5 deep breaths in no particular manner. Make sure that your feet are flat on the floor and your hands are flat on your knees. And I would prefer for you to be sitting up straight. So I'm sitting up, I've got some pillows behind me, but I'm sitting perpendicular, and that's kind of important for this. So I just want us to sit and just reacquaint ourselves with our bodies for just a second. Notice any sensation you might have, tingling ears, warm ears. Maybe your feet might hurt. Maybe there could be some muscular thing. Whatever you're feeling, just acknowledge it. Don't judge it, just acknowledge it. I want you, as we go through this exercise, which is called a body scan meditation, I want you to focus on the concept of gratitude, because our bodies and our minds, if ever we needed to know how important they are, certainly today is that time. So I want to start with the feet. And I want you to focus on your feet. I want you to raise and lower your toes, wiggle them around. Bring the heels up off the floor, stretching out the Achilles tendon and stretching those toes out on the ball of the foot, and rock that back and forth for a minute. Breathing in and out. Place the feet flatly back on the floor. And I want you to focus on your calf area right now. There are veins and tendons and actual arteries that are in there. And we sit all day, and certainly, all of you, do tremendous amounts of work every day that requires you to be seated. So focusing on that, I want you to imagine that as you squeeze those calf muscles, I want you to see the blood moving in directions to fuel the rest of your body. So we're going to squeeze the calf muscles, 1, 2, 3, and release. Squeeze the calf muscle, 1, 2, 3, and release. Squeeze, 1, 2, 3, and release. I want you to touch the knees. Just touch them. You know, so many people have problems with knees and joints, and I want you to just touch those knees and rub them and say thank you in your mind to them. You know, we're able to walk without pain and stand and do what we need to do, and we need to say thank you to our bodies for that and just give them some attention or some love. Continue deep breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Going up to the thighs, and I know people have different relationships with their thighs. I don't think I know any women that are happy with their thighs, and I don't know any men that even give their thighs a second thought. But the truth of the matter is that they contain veins and blood vessels and all of that that are critical to the flow of blood and oxygen in our bodies. And it's important that we tap them a little bit. You can hear me tapping mine. Just tap them, you know, and bring those nerve endings up. Bring the blood to the surface. Tap the inside of them. Tap the top of them. Tap the sides of them, you know, while you're still breathing. The inhale breath, it would be wonderful if you could take that breath in through the back of the throat. It sounds something like this. It is an unusual sound, but I will tell you that that is very calming to the central nervous system. That is what's called a yogic breathing. Thinking right now before we do our next movement, think about the one thing that you're the most grateful for today. You don't need to say it out loud. Just hold it as a thought for a moment and be grateful and experience the feeling in your body of what gratitude is. You know, when you start thinking about that one thing you're so grateful for, it brings a smile to your face. It relaxes the facial muscles. It reduces the blood pressure. It sends a message. No matter what's going on, there's still good things that happen every day. Now, to the extent that you can, I'd like for you to take your left hand on your right thigh, take your right arm and put it behind you, and just give yourself a little twist from the torso. Give yourself a little twist, hold it. Bring it back to the front. We're going to reverse that. Twist to the left. We're going to breathe in and exhale for 3. We want to come back to the center. And we want to do some shoulder and neck rolls. So we're going to just lift the shoulders up. We're going to move them in a round fashion to the front first, down, to the back, and up. We're going to reverse. So up, back, down, and to the front. We're going to go down, back, up, up, back, down. I'd like you to take your left arm, lift it up, wrap your right arm around it. Put that hand, the right hand on the shoulder, and just twist the torso, giving your lats and your shoulders some attention and some appreciation. And hold that. We're going to breathe for 3. We're going to come back and we're going to stretch that out a little bit, bring it back, and then we're going to do the reverse. And bring it back to the front, arms down, shake the arms out a little bit, restore them back to the top of the thighs. And now we're going to focus on the neck and the head. The neck is, honest to goodness, with us sitting at our desks and all of that so many hours a day, everybody's neck is probably in need of some gratitude. So we're going to not jerk our neck around. We're going to be breathing while we move the neck we're going to move our head to the right shoulder, breathing. The ear may touch, it may not. It's not a contest. Hold it for 3. Bring the head to the center. Give yourself a beat. Move the head toward the left shoulder. If you're experiencing any pain or any discomfort, just take it as far as you can go. It's not a contest. It's just about movement, gratitude, and blood flow. And breathe in while you're doing this, and exhale. Sitting straight up in your chair as we did from the beginning of our little exercise, I want to lead you through setting an intention for tomorrow. And while certainly our days are different and we've got parenting responsibilities and people are in charge of lots of big operations and that, but it's important that we start with ourselves. So I would ask you to set an intention for kindness and gratitude for you. It is so easy to think about all the things that we didn't do in a day. Could have done more, should have done more. Be grateful for what you've been able to accomplish. And know that tomorrow, when you get up, your steps will be ordered. You will know what to do. We face the day with a thank you. And we face the day with the understanding that we've got the strength and the ability to get through whatever challenges lay ahead. Breathing in. We don't need to be our best selves. We don't need to be perfect. We simply need to be who we are, and we need to show up, and we need to be grateful for what we have, who we are. Regardless of what experiences we've had in the past, we are grateful for them. And we know that there's no reason to fear because I have within me what I need to meet whatever circumstance is going to arise tomorrow. I want you to keep your eyes closed and sort of seal your own intentions. Deeply breathing. One more time, in and exhale. So I wouldn't be so quick to open my eyes. I would sort of be a little gentle with that. So open your eyes when you're ready to. And yeah. I see a few spots, and I feel really tingly, but I also feel relaxed, and I also feel oddly peaceful and happy. So I promise not to do anything to muck that up.
I don't know how you did it, David, but I feel lighter.
I got a couple good pops in my back.
Me too. Did you hear mine? Yeah. You know, today and the world and all the stuff that we talked about, we've got to realize on some level that there's not really an awful lot that we can do except to take care of ourselves and our mind and each other, right? And we need to be able to be a little bit more open with each other, like we've done the example today. And I think we are going to be doing something that is going to be very helpful to people to explore more of some of the topics that we've talked about tonight. I don't know. Would you guys like to talk? Mm-hmm.
But if I wanted to explore more,
if
where
you
would I be able to find you? Where would I be able to see a discussion like this?
Rose, Kyle, where can they find us?
So there is a couple places. We have TikTok.
Yep.
We have our Instagram going.
Mm-hmm.
We have the website, which is going live.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. I feel like there's LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah. So
everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere is probably the answer.
Yes. The website is coming soon too with additional content.
Okay.
And I mean, downloadables, videos, past webinars, future webinars. And speaking of that, on the 15th of September,
Mm-hmm.
we're actually going to be having a webinar. David will probably give you a little bit more information on that, just to kind of introduce the team and David,
Our team,
and what to expect in the future, and also kind of give everybody a little bit of a taste of what David has to offer as far as wellness and I mean, everything. I mean, today was great too.
Can I just say, I'm looking at you guys and it looks like your blood pressure has come down.
Yes.
Your voices are changed.
Well, my vodka just kicked in, but the meditation helped.
Yeah, I meditate. I pray to Vicodin and vodka. And we're not recommending that, but so Kyle mentioned September 15, and so September 15, we're going to be doing a free program that will be open to the public. And we're calling it Navigating Change because that's exactly what we're all trying to do. That program will be free to the public. You can certainly reach out. You can Google David Burden and locate me through whatever medium is available to you through that Google search. And certainly sign up for that. Navigating change, building resistance, maintaining our emotional intelligence and our emotional health, maintaining our mental health. We have programs coming up like Mental Health 101, certainly not a tool for self-diagnosis, but a tool for awareness and giving you enough information to know when you need to get help. So it's important as we sort of conclude today, stay tuned for September 15. More information will be provided. And with as much love and respect as you have experienced in our call tonight, in our program tonight, please know that there's more of that for you, because that's what we need more of. We need to be able to look at people not for what they aren't or for what they did yesterday, but to look at somebody and say, gosh, I just feel like I've got a hug and a meal right now. Or I'm so proud to have you as my friend because you're so smart and you're just such an extraordinary parent and human being. You know, those feelings and those emotions raise us up and take us into a positive place. Talking about how bad everybody is and you can't believe what she did. And I heard her say this. That's negative energy. You have to make a choice which one you want to be. Of course, my choice is for quite obvious. My choice is the positive road, right? So you guys have anything you want to add before we close out for tonight?
I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Always a great perspective whenever I talk to you. I can come to you at any mood and you have this other perspective, and I do always come away lighter. If only my scale would tell me that, but.
Yeah, this
So
was
my shoulders feel it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was great. It was very calming. Definitely put things in perspective. I like the fact about persevering is bouncing forward, not back, with resilience. So definitely some great takeaways. It all kind of revolves around mental health as far as dealing with our fears, anxieties, and I think that's a huge deal right now. I mean, I hear it everywhere. I hear it on the news. I hear it at work. I hear it just from family. Everybody's saying mental health, mental health, mental health, and it's because it's a problem right now. So
people are breaking down. I hate to say that. It sounds so dramatic, but this is only Tuesday. There are 2 employees that work for one of the employers that I support that I had to help with a psychiatric emergency admission.
Yeah.
2 people, 2 days. And I don't know, I'm not surprised what is going to await me when I answer my phone in the morning. So I don't think we need any more evidence that we need a way to bring ourselves in and empower ourselves and use our minds and use our spirits. And that's what all 4 of us are all about. We are DKBA, and we are a functioning team as opposed to a dysfunctional one. I just thought I would say that because, it just needed to be said. Because functional to me means we've got a grasp on our histories. Mm-hmm. We do not let our histories repeat. We are aware of our triggers and we know when they're being pressed and we know how to address that. We can put a name to what we're feeling and we are familiar with the elements of self-care. That is a functional team. And that's what we all are. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. I mean, I'm surprised I was able to get through this without crying because I am a very emotional person. I know that shocks all of you.
Yeah.
I know. But it's just so wonderful in a time when we see such negativity and bad behavior in people. It's just a pleasure and a privilege to be around people that exude love, calm, organization.
Nice.
And good recipes too.
Yeah. So stay tuned for the bonus content where we get David to cry. I'm kidding, David.
Well, you know what? You're going to have to wait for my Botox and antidepressants to wear off. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to dial in. And if you have one additional takeaway for today, let it be figuring out a way to start your day tomorrow that is empowering, that is filled with gratitude and excitement. Figure out a way to nurture those things at the top of every day. I assure you, good things will follow that. So thank you for taking the time to dial in, everybody, and listen to this. And I'm not sure, you could be watching this off YouTube or who knows where. And I'm glad for that. And, Kyle, Rose, and Megan, none of this would have happened without you. So I really deeply appreciate you. Okay, well, everybody, thank you and have a peaceful and calm evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.